everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 373 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I cannot be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think can be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about all of that spending you did this holiday season, right? And some of you may have been very responsible with the spending that you did, but I want to talk to you about how you can get back on the right track or on the right track for the first time if you really feel like this year's holiday spending was just out of control. I'll talk to you about what I do for my own holiday spending, me and my wife, how we navigate this weird part of the year where you spend a lot of money typically, right? And then lastly, I'm going to give you some things that you can take with you, some thoughts about how you can ultimately make your financial life more stable and more financially free by the choices that you make in the holiday season every single year. So stick around for a discussion of all that and more in today's episode. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan. And that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to build a financial plan and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just DM me on any of the major social media sites and tell me that you are interested in financial coaching sessions. And you and I can begin working together, pushing towards your long-term financial goals and ultimately pushing you on towards long-term financial freedom, which is what I hope for every single individual who's watching or listening to this show on a day-to-day basis. Now, I know that I ended last week talking about financial resolutions, right? And talking about how when the new year starts, we can make some decisions to change. We can change immediately, and we can, right? But the new year's here, and have you really put anything down on paper? Do you really have any goals that you want to reach financially this year? And if you do, great, right? But if you haven't done that, you haven't done any thinking on that, I think that today's episode will absolutely help you. And here's why. Because one of the biggest reasons that people want to do things financially, people want to create these financial resolutions, these New Year's financial resolutions, is because they did some dumb stuff over the holiday season, right? And it's so easy, and I know that it's easy to do, right? Between buying presents for everyone, if you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or any of the gift-giving holidays, right? Buying presents for people is very, very costly, right? Hosting gatherings is costly, right? Buying food, buying drink for everyone, going here, there, and everywhere. I'll just give you a quick anecdote. So we live in Texas, and then we come home to Arkansas for all of the holidays, and we come home and we stay with family, right? And so where my family lives versus where my wife's family lives is like an hour away, right? So every time that we go from one to the other while we're staying with the other's family, then we are, driving an hour here, an hour there, right? So ultimately what you end up doing is you're spending a lot on gas, especially when gas prices aren't, rock bottom like they were this time last year. So, there's a lot of costs. There's a lot of costs associated with holidays. There's a lot of costs that maybe you didn't foresee. There's a lot of things that maybe you didn't plan to do that get baked into your holiday budget. Now, it's way easier to deal with holidays if you've, been doing it for a while and you kind of know what to expect. And it's way easier if you actually have a plan. It's way easier if you actually know what you want to do, right? And you're going to stick to said plan, right? Now, this sticking to a plan also becomes easier when you're financially free, because then even if you overspend a little bit, then you can have some grace with yourself and you have the savings, you have the extra financial buffer to where a little bit of overspending is not going to kill you, okay? But I know many of you are not in the strongest financial place. You are not to long-term financial freedom yet, right? You're not to the place where you're out of debt and you're investing for your future and you're giving generously and you're doing all of these things, right? But you spend in the holiday season just like everyone else would. And that's a problem, right? You may need to take a different approach to the holidays. You may need to take an approach to the holidays that says, hey, I know the exact amount of money that I'm going to spend and I won't spend a dime more, right? And that amount of money that you spend may be a very conservative estimate of what you are going to spend, but you're not going to spend a dime more, right? That's exactly how much you're going to spend, exactly what you're going to do, and nobody can tell you otherwise, right? That may be how you have to take a hard line. But many people also do not have to take hard lines. Again, being financially free, having savings, having a financial buffer there, you don't have to draw these hard lines, but you still have to be, a bit reasonable, right? It's hard to bounce back from anything if you are not at least reasonable. So let's just think. How much, and I'm just going to look this up because I'm thoughtful here. I've got my computer here. How much does the average person spend at Christmas? So how much does the average person spend? I won't just say at Christmas. I'll say, we'll say on Christmas, right? That's just one part of the holidays, but it's also one of the most costly. So this says in 2018, U.S. households spent an average of $1,536 during the Christmas holidays. Now, it's a household, but still, right? $1,536 is no slouch, right? In 2019, the average amount spent dropped to $1,496. About a third of that figure represents the average amount spent on Christmas gifts and gift cards, which is $511. So in my mind, I thought that, gifts and gift cards and all those types of things would be a larger part of what we ended up spending during Christmas time. But apparently, spending on the food, the travel, all those types of things can be a real damper on your finances. So you hear these numbers. These are some very large numbers. And then your question becomes, well, then what do I do, right? Maybe I'm not in the best financial situation. Maybe I'm not in a place where I can do, everything all at once. I mean, I don't know what I do other than go into credit card debt, or I don't know what I do other than, just spend money on everything that I would typically spend money on, because you don't want to leave anybody out from getting a Christmas gift. You don't want, and look, I understand all of these things, but at the same time, you can control what you do, right? And especially with your gift giving, you can control it, right? You can absolutely control how you give gifts. You don't have to purchase something for everyone, right? You're not going to hurt everyone's feelings by not getting them a gift. And if they're getting their feelings hurt by not getting a gift, then maybe they don't understand the idea around this Christmas season at all, right? You don't have to explain yourself to people. You don't have to explain that, oh, I didn't get you a gift this year because finances are tough or whatever, and or I made Christmas gifts this year instead of purchasing them because finances are tight or what. You don't have to explain yourself to people, right? Just do. And if people judge you, that's their fault. Or if people have ill feelings about what you did, that's their fault, because you are trying to get your financial life in order. Now, for some of you who do have your financial life in order, for some of you who do have this thing kind of figured out, you can still overspend and you can still hurt yourself financially in the Christmas season. But there's some keys to doing this right. And even if you're not in this place financially, you can spend good amounts of money and it be perfectly okay that you did so. But one of the primary things that I suggest, and I would suggest that you start today, right? This isn't going to help you clean up the mess that you just made, but it may help you not make a mess this coming year. What I would start now is a sinking fund, right? So this is just like a separate savings account or separate checking account or separate, pool of money, right? Where every single month you're putting money into it. So let's say that the average household spending $1,536 during the Christmas holidays. That means by December, we'll just say by December, you need to have $1,536. So let's say $1,536. Now, just because this is the average does not mean it's what you need to spend. And if you are, in a financially tough spot, you really don't need to be coming anywhere close to this number. But let's just use that as the idea. So let's say on a monthly basis, you would have to save $139.64 in order to pay for everything in cash that may cost $1,536. Okay, that's Perfectly doable. Now, is that the only way to do it? No. Is that the way I do it? Not necessarily, right? We do put away money in savings every single month, right? And that money ends up paying for things like that down the road, but it's not like specifically in its own account, right? So just as long as you're putting money away that you know is going to be used on that, that's perfectly fine, right? But the key is you have to save for it over some period of time. Maybe you don't start in January, right? Maybe you start in June, but in June, I mean, you've only got, let's see, June, July, August, September, October, November, right? So you're still at 6 months there. And so instead of basically 140 a month, right, you're looking at, let's see, 256 a month in order to hit that amount. So the amount goes up, the less time that you spend saving up for it, right? The monthly amount goes up. So having money set aside in that way is going to allow you to not have a financial mess to clean up after Christmas. It's going to allow you to not max out your credit card or not spend so much money that you don't know how you're going to repay it, or it's going to keep you from going into debt, all these different types of things, right? Because the danger of Christmas time, the danger of the holidays is that you feel the need to give and do and spend and all these types of things, and then you end up in debt. Right? And then you end up with these high interest rates on your credit card that you're having to pay, and you can't get back on track. And it takes you until next Christmas to get back on track. And then you just start the whole process over again. But the real thing that we need to do, right, even though we can set up this safeguard for next Christmas, and we should, right, we should begin setting up this automatic savings to where next Christmas we've got it figured out. But something that we must do right after that is clean up what we just did, right? Clean up whatever mess is still around. Clean up this holiday hangover that we have in our finances. Because if we don't clean this up and it just hangs around, like I said, it could be around till next Christmas or longer, and then we're just adding to it year after year after year, and it's continuing to keep us, held back in our financial life. Now, what do we do to clean it up? Well, what we must do to clean it up is first take inventory, right? You have to take inventory of your financial life. Take inventory of how, and I know it's going to hurt and it's going to suck, and you're going to be like, how much money did we spend on this? What did we do here? Why did we do that? All these different types of things, right? But you need to take inventory. You need to see what you did in your financial life this holiday season. And once you see what you did, right, then you have to say, okay, how in the world do we get this credit card debt paid off, right? Or how in the world do we replenish our savings that we depleted by, spending on all these Christmas gifts? How do we do this, right? How do we get back? My dad always says, get back to zero, right? Get back to this neutral place, right? Where we don't have issues and we're not above where we were, but just get back to right where you were, okay? And you have to take inventory. You take inventory, you see where you're at, and then you say, okay, well, what's next? Well, most people over the holiday season are going to have credit card debt that they're going to have to deal with. Okay. And so much credit card debt, in fact, that, one check is not going to be enough to just fix it. You're not going to be able to just get it paid off. And again, this is most people, not everyone, right? So I don't want you guys to think that I'm talking in just broad strokes. I'm just saying in general, this is going to be the case for people. And so what you have to do then is to come into this place where you have to pay off your debt. And you know what I say to do as far as paying off debt, because I tell you follow the financial action plan. I tell you to have a budget, right? So you need to start budgeting your income outside of the Christmas season. Start budgeting your income in a way where you know where your money's going and to where you can save money effectively and pay off debt effectively. But if you're trying to pay off this debt, what you have to do, you have to budget uniquely every single month. You have to have some type of emergency savings. That way we're not going deeper into debt and again end up in the same place next Christmas, because that's the problem, right? The problem is this perpetuating cycle. And that's a big problem in most of our financial life, is that we get used to doing something and then something else comes along. It's why people feel like they can't get ahead in their financial life, because they aren't intense enough. They aren't intentional enough. And then what happens is these same types of things just keep coming around. You ever heard people talk about, every time I'm, I feel like I got a little extra money, the check engine light comes on, or I have a medical bill or something, right, that you have to take care of. And sometimes it does feel like that, but part of that is the fact that you're not being intense enough with your finances. You're not taking the proper steps to save yourself from emergencies. So having some emergency fund is a huge deal, right? But ultimately, when you need to pay off debt, when you get to that fourth part of the financial action plan, you need to do so very swiftly, very quickly, because just the money that you spent during the Christmas holiday is going to be, not a stupendous amount, right? You should get that money paid off, that debt paid off in a very short period of time. But then once you do that, right, you may have other debt too. Right? Because this may be just a total financial clean house for you. I don't want to assume that the only debt that you took on was your Christmas holiday debt. The likelihood is that if you went into debt for that, you likely go into debt for other things as well. So you need to get out of those things too, because what will that do? That will free up your cash flow in order to just spend cash on Christmas or the holidays next year. Right? Or this year now, I guess, right? So this next holiday season, then you can just spend cash, save up, do what you need to do in cash, and not have to worry about going into debt again. You have to break the perpetual cycle of financial instability. And I know it's hard. I know it's not easy. I know it takes a change and a shift in mindset, but doesn't it stink? Doesn't it stink that it's a new year? And you're sitting there going, I don't know how I'm going to pay for something that I've already bought, right? Doesn't it stink that you may have gone into debt for something that you'll never see again, or maybe you bought something for a child or a person that you're like they may use that thing twice and then never use that again. So you really have to think critically about exactly what you're doing with your financial life. And so I just want you to take the anecdote of what my wife and I do and exactly how we go about this process. Is it perfect? No. But we know how this process works for us, and so we budget accordingly. So we do a unique monthly budget, right? 100% every time. And we tend to have a fair amount of residual income in that budget. And why do we have that residual income? Well, because we do avoid debt. We don't have debt in our financial life, right? So when you don't have debt, you have residual income. We don't overspend on things. And so we have residual income. And so what we do is we budget every single month, and some of that residual income goes into savings, right? Kind of this slush fund savings to where, if something is to occur, we can pay for it in cash. It's kind of external to our emergency fund. And it's something a little extra that we feel like, hey, we like having that little extra savings there. Because the emergency fund is fine, but I don't want to have to be replenishing something all the time and go backwards in my financial plan. What I want to do is put a little extra money towards savings all the time in order to meet any immediate needs. And then if anything big is to occur, then I can use the emergency fund. But we put a little extra into savings all the time so that if anything unforeseen comes along, then we can take care of it. But it's also going in there so that some of the expenses that we have throughout the year can be taken care of, like people's birthdays, right? Like Christmas, like all these different things, like anniversaries, right? So we do all these things and we pay for all these things. And then once that time comes around, once somebody's birthday comes around, the anniversary comes around, Christmas comes around, we have the money on hand, the cash on hand to spend for those things, right? So every year what we do is we set some budget, right? We set some amount that we are going to spend specifically on Christmas presents, right? Christmas presents is a really big deal. So we set an amount we're going to spend on Christmas presents, and we sit down every October, early November, but it's typically the end of October, and we buy everyone's Christmas gifts. So everybody knows you have to be on the ball in getting us a list because we are buying stuff early, right? And the reason for that is multifold, but it allows us to go ahead and spend the money that we're going to spend, and then have the cash flow during the Christmas season, right? During December and into the new year, have the cash flow to go to family gatherings, right? To travel, to purchase things for food, for drink, for all those different types of things. And then we're in a position where you roll into this new year and I have no stress financially, right? I have no worry financially because I've already done all of the things and set up all of the things that I needed to do in order to not have a New Year's hangover, a financial hangover, right? And this is not easy, right? It sounds simple, and it is. In essence, it is a very, very simple thing to do, a very simple set of steps, and we can all implement it. But if you're not used to it, it is not easy, right? Because you may be used to this situation where you're just spending as much as you want on gifts, or you're just going into debt every year just to pay it off the next year. You may be used to that cycle, but you also have to understand, and surely you feel it, that cycle is not sustainable. And that cycle will eventually end up in, not only did you go into debt for Christmas gifts, but something emergent happens in your life, and now you're sitting with more negative money than you ever thought you would, right? I'm not suggesting you use your emergency fund savings for Christmas gifts. I'm saying above and beyond that. And again, look, when you are first trying to get on track, you may feel like, gosh, well, Christmas season's coming around and I haven't gotten all my debt paid off, and how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Again, look, you may have a couple years where you're not able to give, gifts in the way that you want to, and you're not able to, supply money for things or supply things for the gatherings in the way that you want to. But once you spend those couple of years, tops grinding through the, financial mess that you've made, and then you get out on the other side, then you'll never have to deal with those things again. Then you'll always have money in order to pay for the things that you need to in cash during the Christmas season. Because look, I tell people this all the time. I would much rather somebody tell me that they're trying to get their financial life right, and that they're, doing all of these things, and, that's the reason why they're not getting people presents, or they're not doing this or that during the financial season, than them go into credit card debt just to appease a few people, right? Because I know that there's pressure, and I know that there's, you see family that you haven't seen in a while, and you feel the need to do all these things. But at the same time, it's not permanent, right? And it's not the end of your life. And you know what? The new year will roll around, and you won't have regret. And that's the thing that I really want to help you guys get over, is this financial regret. This ability to get past that regret is so valuable, because I know that there are several things that you do in your financial life, or that you don't do in your financial life, that you go, man, it sucks that I did that. But is there more regret in, overspending and spending money that you don't have, and having to, constantly pay off that debt that you've gone into? Is there more regret in that, or is there more regret in not spending money? In my opinion, I think there's more regret in overspending, right? There's more regret in having to kick the can down the road with the money that you don't have. Because, I did the episode yesterday talking about why debt is bad, and how all these young people feel like they are drowning in debt. Well, yeah, they feel like they're drowning in debt. And part of that is this regret, right? It's this regret that they have done the things that they have financially, right? And look, I'm not saying that you need to have some outstanding income to make this happen. You don't, right? You can have a moderate income and absolutely do what I am saying to do. I'm also not saying that you're going to be the big, Christmas gift giver afterwards. If your income doesn't change substantially, then you might not be, right? But what you will be is you'll be financially free. And what you will be is you'll be financially independent and successful, and not have to worry about, using debt in order to finance your household's Christmas. Now, I would also suggest this, and I know this one's going to hurt a lot of you guys, but if this is something that you do, you need to, take this step. And like I said, it's going to hurt, and you may not feel like this is what you need to do, but you absolutely should. Once you get out of debt, right, and you have your emergency fund built, all those types of things, right? If you've been putting your holidays on credit cards, you need to get rid of the credit cards, right? You need to cut the credit cards up. Because if you've gotten into this cycle of going into debt every single holiday season, there's going to be other holiday seasons, and you're going to feel the need to pull out that credit card again, right? And you're going to tell yourself, hey, it's just one small thing. I'll just put that on the credit card. Or it's just this or it's just that. And then you look up and you've got a $1,500 credit card balance and you don't know how you're going to pay it. Or you got a $3,000 credit card balance and you don't know how you're going to pay it, right? You need to get rid of the credit cards. You need to work on a cash basis, right? And that may be something else that's useful for you during Christmas time as well. I know a lot of the things that we purchase are online, especially gift-wise, right? We all order stuff from Amazon and Walmart and all these types of things online. But if you are going to stores to buy food or to buy drinks or to buy whatever it may be for the holidays, use cash, right? Give yourself cash, budget yourself out cash for those things. That way you don't overspend. You cannot overspend if you have cash because there is a finite amount of it, right? But if you just put something on a credit card, then you can continue spending as much as you want to. Look, it's more than about Christmas. It's more than about the holidays. It's about breaking bad financial habits. It's about ending the cycles of going into debt, because going into debt's only going to hurt you. But I want you to get over it. I want you to get to the other side, because if you get to the other side, then there's freedom. And then we're sitting here, what's today? January the 5th, right? And it's my anniversary, by the way. So happy anniversary to my wife. But you're sitting here on January 5th and you have no worry. Yeah, I'm not worried about money, right? I just told you that today's my anniversary and it came right after Christmas. It came right after the holidays. It's coming right before Valentine's. I'm not worried about money. And it's not because I make an exorbitant income. It's not because my wife makes an exorbitant income. It's because we have taken the proper steps in order to, regret-proof our financial life. And taking the proper steps in order to have emergency savings, in order to be out of debt, in order to invest for our future, put money away so that we can do things later on. Sacrifice today so that you have later, and sacrifice today so that in a few years you can be sitting in this chair and going, hey, I actually have money to do the things that I want to do. I can spend in the way I want to spend, right? Because maybe right now you're not in the financial place to spend how you want to on Christmas and the holidays, but very soon you could be, right? You could be back in that place where you can spend, but now you can spend in cash and you can do in cash and you don't have to go into debt for the exorbitant spending that you did, right? I'm all for giving. I'm all for being generous. I'm all for having great holiday celebrations and doing all those types of things, but I am not at all for going into debt for any of it. I'm not at all for financing my Christmas. I'm not at all for financing, the joy that comes with Christmas. The joy should come by being with family, by understanding what Christmas is about, that it's about, the birth of Jesus Christ, that it's about the hope and the joy that we have, right? And being in debt leaves you with very little hope, and it brings very little joy. It doesn't bring any joy, right? That just brings the sigh that comes every month with the credit card bill that you have to pay off, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that. I just want you guys to know that it is possible to do different things financially. It is possible to change the way that you do your spending over the holidays. And I want you to start 2023 with a new outlook. I want you to start 2023 with no regret. I want you to start 2023 in a place where you're financially back at zero and you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to take any drastic steps. You didn't have to do anything outrageous, because you began now, because you did the right thing starting in January of 2022, and it just moved right along, and then you paid for everything in cash and everybody's happy, right? So that's what I hope for you. That's what I want you to do. I'm not saying you have to do exactly what me and my wife do, but I am saying that if you do nothing, then the cycle will continue and the pain will continue and your financial life will not get better, right? But that's not what I want for you. I want your financial life to get better, and I want you to feel this financial freedom that comes with no holiday hangover. So thanks for watching this episode. If you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to build a financial plan and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just DM me on any of the major social media sites and tell me that you are interested in financial coaching sessions, and you and I can begin working together, pushing towards your long-term financial goals and ultimately pushing you on towards long-term financial freedom, which is what I hope for every single individual who's watching or listening to this show on a day-to-day basis. So tune in tomorrow as I continue talking about personal finance topics that I think could be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.